One time when I was around 9, I was sitting in the back seat of my sister's Jeep Cherokee, along with my cousin. She's also the same age as me. My sister was driving, and my other cousin, around the same age as her, like 17-ish, was in the passenger seat. My sister always took me with her to run errands or trips to the mall. On this day, my younger cousin was at my house and we were playing in the backyard, till my sister just had us tag along. Anyway, we're driving on the freeway, and we see a carnival with rides. The Zipper, that crazy unsafe ride with the cages that spin, could be seen, as well as the Ferris wheel. Me and my cousin were begging my sister to please take us. She said no, and made that same exit. It was the same exact exit to head right on some main road. The carnival was situated to the left. On the ramp, we were on the red light, and my sister said she promised we'll go after she returned this shirt or something, and my older cousin needed to buy these shoes on sale. This was before smartphones and stuff, like late 90s. Besides myself, everyone in family knew that my sister was always amazing with directions. She even told us she knew exactly where to park, too, so we didn't have to walk far or deal with the traffic. I specifically remember that when walking into the mall, we could sense a very faint smell of the carnival elephant ears, corn dogs and stuff. We go into the mall for like no more than a half hour and walking to my sister's truck. Me and my younger cousin were so happy and excited. All of a sudden, I remember noticing I didn't smell the carnival anymore. It was probably just my excitement, so I didn't even say anything. We get in the car and make our way around the loopy parking lots and inner streets to finally get onto the same road we came on, which also takes you to the freeway. The second we turned, there was nothing. Nothing but a continuing road on both ends of the freeway exits. No large gates blocking traffic. No large wires on the ground. No distant sounds of children screaming and laughing on the rides. No scent of elephant ears. I'll never forget us all just staring at the blank road. My older cousin in the front seat says, did they press a button, and the whole carnival just went underground or disappeared? Nobody laughed. We all thought the same thing. My sister then put her signal on, turning left on the ramp, which was originally blocked a half hour before, and we headed home. There's no way the carnival shut down, packed, and vanished that quickly. Even if they were, the rides were going. Kids were yelling, laughing. It was all lively. So even if they started to close down that same instant, it would be impossible to disassemble the Ferris wheel, all the rides, let alone the barricades to block incoming traffic or the wires, cones. Till this day, we all remember this story in perfect detail. None of us can ever explain how this was possible. By far one of the weirdest things I have ever experienced. I live in a college in Italy, but it's not like most colleges. This one accepts students from primary school all the way to high school. I'm 14 years old, and I live inside the building, day and night. Over time, I started dividing the place in my head into 4 sections. 2 of them are always busy, full of students and staff. But the other 2, they've been completely sealed off for years. I've always had this urge to explore places people avoid. I'm drawn to mystery and horror. My friend Orlando runs a small YouTube channel, and I help out as the cameraman. One night we decided to check out the nearest abandoned section of the college. At first, the place lived up to its reputation. Heavy doors locked tight, hallways swallowed in darkness. We couldn't get very far. But just as we were leaving, another group of students showed up. They had the same idea as us. But, unlike us, they brought tools. They figured out how to get through one of the sealed doors. That's when everything changed. Beyond that door was a place I'd never seen before. A massive wing of the college that went on far longer than it should have. Hallways that stretched for what felt like forever. Rooms stacked with furniture draped in sheets. We didn't have time to see it all. We went back to our dorms before anyone noticed we were gone, but we weren't finished. The next night we returned, just me and Orlando. We reached a half-blocked room and managed to push our way in. I stepped in first, camera rolling, but it was pitch black. I asked Orlando for the torch. The second the light clicked on, I could see how bad the damage was. Chunks of the ceiling on the floor, shattered tiles, and walls coated in graffiti. There was a strange smell in the air, like burnt metal, mixed with mold. I turned the torch toward a passage I hadn't noticed before, an open gallery at the far end of the room. That's when we heard it. A roar. Loud, deep, not human, not animal. The floor vibrated as something heavy began to charge toward us from the dark. We ran. No questions. No hesitation. I kept filming as we tore down the stairs, and in the chaos we started hearing voices. Not just one or two, dozens. Laughter, screams, shouting. It echoed through the walls. But there was no one else there. Once we made it outside, we stopped to catch our breath. That's when the fire alarms went off. Not once or twice, but 10 times, all from the abandoned section. It was too specific to be a glitch. Something, or someone, was triggering them. We knew we were the only ones in that wing. None of the other students had gone in. The guards confirmed it. And then came the final detail that shook me. That same night, the night guards on the male side of the building reported thick black smoke rising from the sealed-off area. It wasn't cigarette smoke. It was heavier. It hung in the air like something that shouldn't be there. Since then, I've been asking questions. But every time I bring up that part of the college, the answers keep changing. Teachers avoid it. Staff give me excuses that don't add up. It's like no one wants the truth to come out. And here's the worst part. If all of that came from the closer abandoned section, the one we explored, I can't imagine what's hidden in the far wing. The one no one even speaks about. The one they pretend doesn't exist. If anyone sees this, please believe me. Something is happening here. Something beyond explanation. And I think it's just beginning. This happened in summer of 2020. I was 20 at the time, and I had gone on a trip to Moab, Utah with my roommate and best friend since high school, Kendall, who was 21 at the time. We had last minute joined her family's trip, celebrating her sister's high school graduation. We lived a few hours by car from Moab, which had just reopened after being closed to the public due to COVID. They had plans to go skydiving, and we were excited to tag along. Our plan was to drive separately, stay the night on the couch of her family's Airbnb, go skydiving with them, and then stay the last night at a small cabin in a campground right outside town. Just the two of us as an added adventure. We had never been on a trip as adults, staying on our own, and we're excited to have the independence. Fast forward a bit, and we had a great trip down there as well as a fun first night with Kendall's family. We all went skydiving in the morning early. It was beautiful. After Kendall and I had a huge adrenaline rush and decided to go for a hike to a watering hole. There we explored and even did a small cliff jump into the water. By the end of the day, we were exhausted physically from our activities and from the rush and now drop of adrenaline. We had checked into our campground, which was about 10 miles from the town. There was a general store at the mouth of the property with somewhat unfriendly older cashiers to check us in. But we didn't think much of it. The campground was made of different sections for tents, RVs, and small cabins. When I say small cabins, I mean room for 2 twin beds and a chair and hardly anything else. We stayed in one of those. Like I said, Moab had just reopened to tourists. So besides us, we saw one other family of 3 staying in the entire campground. We also noticed we didn't have a cell phone signal in the camp. Remember that. By nightfall, we could hardly move our bodies. We were so sore and spent about an hour in camp chairs under the stars, drinking a few Mike's Hards. Before I knew it, I realized we had had a little too much for being an unfamiliar place on our own, but shook it off. We decided to call it a night and grabbed our lantern to head to the communal bathrooms to wash our faces. Also, I'll add now that Kendall had sprained her ankle a month prior to this and was wearing a boot on her right leg. Yes, she went skydiving and hiking with this. We were young and eager to get out after lockdown, but she was unable to drive with the angle her foot needed to be at to brake safely. So I had been doing all the driving. We made our way to the bathroom, giggling through the pitch dark with our light. We reached the hut that held the 4 separated bathrooms. Each had a shower directly across from the door, and a toilet and sink against, on side wall. We swung the door open, eager to get out of the dark, and flipped the light switch on. I entered the room first and immediately stopped in my tracks. Kendall stopped in the doorway. We both were silent. There was something off. I don't know how to describe it, but it was like an intense feeling something was wrong. We stared forward at the shower, which had the curtain half drawn closed. There was some kind of short stepping stool in the middle of the shower with the front 2 legs poking out from behind the curtain. My eyes started to rise, and I could just make out the faint silhouette of a person standing on the stole behind the thin curtain. We stood there frozen in shock, confusion, and disbelief. There couldn't be someone hiding behind the curtain like a scary movie. Suddenly, Kendall broke the silence. "What's that?" I looked to my right where the sink was. Propped on the sink against the mirror was an iPhone with a screen facing us. The camera was out and recording. That snapped me out of my trace. I shouted, "Nope!" and we both turned around and basically ran back to our cabin. We locked the door and tried to figure out what we just did walked into. We couldn't call anyone because we had no signal, and this was our first time staying somewhere new on our own. I had been drinking and didn't feel confident that I could drive through the rocks and sharp turns and make it back to the highway. We tried to calm ourselves down, talk our way out of what we saw. We turned the lights off because I couldn't get the image of someone looking through the small 1 window on the door leading into our cabin. We were all alone in this campground, completely exhausted physically from our skydive and hiking. I know it sounds dumb, but at the time we were so confused and tired, we just decided to go to sleep and leave. First thing in the morning, we pushed our beds together and lay there in the dark in silence. I started to think about the staff who worked at the campground, and if they, knowing it was almost empty, had been the one in the bathroom, or if we were just mistaken in what we saw. About 10 minutes into laying there, Kendall said, "You know what's weird?" I froze, waiting to hear something to add to this horrible situation. She told me about earlier when she'd gone to take a shower. How she looked up and saw a blinking blue light in the vent above the shower. I didn't say anything. We left in the morning and never spoke about any of it again. Honestly, I know we didn't handle the situation well. If it had happened now, there's no way we wouldn't have reported it. But we were young and scared. We didn't know how to process what was happening. I still don't know really what happened. Anyways, we never stayed there again. Sorry it was so long. Kinda relived it while writing it.